So, Sascha, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Sascha I'm from KMFDM. Some people know me under my nickname, Captain K. But here I am talking to you, Mike, in Malta.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So this is your 40th year. How's things changed?
Well, it's the 40th year. I feel like it all started really yesterday. It's kind of it's been a hell of a trip, really. And now here we are, just having released our 23rd studio album and heading out on the road in the US in just about 3.5 weeks from now. And, rocking the house once around the United States from the East Coast through the West Coast.
And that's in March, isn't it?
Huh?
That's in March.
That's in March, yes.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, how do you go down in America, all right?
Yeah, America really is our main stomping ground. It's been kind of like ever since we toured with Ministry in early 1990, that was kind of very much eye-opening when we had played in Europe in front of like very small audiences. And sometimes opening for larger bands like Einstürzen and Neubauten or Young Gods or Borghesia. All of a sudden, we found ourselves in the United States being able to headline tours, and our record label managed to sell a shitload of records. So it was kind of a no-brainer to decide to stay there and not go back to Germany. And that's kind of when we began to neglect European audiences, unfortunately, a little bit. Because it always seemed like so much easier to tour right in front of your own doorstep rather than packing it up and going back to Europe. And that's kind of like what we're paying for now, much as we try to get a foothold in Europe, it's been 10 years in trying, but not really been very fruitful at all. So, yeah, America is it for us.
Wow, that's incredible. That's the kind of the home fans are not picking up on you again.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that way, but it's I don't know. In the US, we see like a lot of young kids coming to our shows nowadays. Sometimes 2 generations. Even one time I saw 3 generations of KMFDM fans standing right in front of me, which was really amazing. And I think that's quite rewarding to attract a young audience instead of old fogies like us,
Yeah, exactly. You were saying that I recently went to see the UK Subs on their final tour, and in the venue, there's the older punks and the younger ones, and there's such a generation gap between them all. It was fascinating to see.
I guess.
Sorry, go on.
I guess in Britain, that's kind of a tradition, like sort of the older punk rockers, they still go to concerts, and in every pub you can hear the Sex Pistols and whatnot and the Damned and stuff. Yeah. That is pretty unique in Britain, I guess, though.
Yeah, they do keep their old bands are still going strong with them. I'm the same personally. I love the older bands still. I love the newer bands, but I do absolutely adore the old bands that I was still listening to and are still going.
There's an adorable unashamedness about it, so that's what I really appreciate about it.
Yeah, that's something really good. But I mean, so in America, you stayed there for a while, didn't you? You lived there for quite a while.
Yeah, I lived there almost for 20 years, and at some point it was getting kind of weird with George W. Bush, and I felt like it might be time to break down the teepee and go back to good old Europe.
Yeah.
Still unsure if that was a good decision or not, but here I am now, so
That's it. But at least you get to travel to America, not during the COVID times, obviously, but at least now you can go back and...
Yeah, obviously I used to have a permanent, resident card and stuff, but after not having visited for a couple of months or a year or so because my daughter was born, they took away my so-called green card, and now I have to apply for a work visa every couple of years to go over there. But yeah, it's all good. It's just,
And you're still enjoying it? as in the music side.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just listened to your new album, and it kind of took me by surprise a little bit. It's how it seems to be quite heavily influenced by late 80s, early 90s. Am I misinterpreting that?
Well, that's intentional, yeah.
Yeah. So it is there. Yeah. You could hear it, and you can hear, I mean, I don't know what inspired you for that, but there is so many different little elements there. I think, oh no, it's gone. And it's something else. Yeah. It moves along quite well.
Well, the idea was to make a very visual album, visual in terms of, taking you onto some sort of voyage, onto some sort of trip.
Yeah.
And perhaps even more so than on previous albums, it was very important to have a beginning, a middle, and an end to this thing. It was very conceptual in a way. And a lot of thought went into the sequencing of, where to go next. And also, what I think really important is the length of some songs. Sometimes you just end up producing, 5-6 minute long tracks, and then you realize, well, there isn't really all that much going on, and there actually doesn't need to be all that much going on. So putting down the blade and radically slicing it up and shortening it is sometimes really, really good for certain songs,
Yeah.
Who says that a song has to be over 3 or 4 minutes long? I mean, some of the best songs maybe only 2.5 minutes, because that's all they serve the purpose for, to just be short and impactful and leave you kind of stunned. We need like a 5-minute taser attack all the time.
Unless you go to Kraftwerk Autobahn.
I'm sorry?
Unless you go to Kraftwerk and Autobahn.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
That's the opposite.
Or old Pink Floyd records, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, at least there was a reason behind the Autobahn, wasn't it? It was supposed to indicate the boredom and monotony of the Autobahn, basically.
Obviously.
Yeah, very, very clever that was. I noticed it did take me back a lot. Airhead, the video.
Right.
All the little clips there from the 80s. And I take it 90, but I can't quite remember. My memory's not that great. Watching the video of that from yours, and I thought, wow.
The producer of that video, he took it quite literal, actually. Airhead started out as a very plodding yet kind of melodious type of track, and I was kind of unsure whether I had something there that I should even present to my bandmates. And then it happened so that Lucia's walking into the studio, and she goes, "Oh man, I have an idea for this song, and just send it to me. Don't change anything." So I sent it over, and maybe an hour later she came back into the studio and she had written the lyrics, and I was like, that's exactly what the song needed. Something very silly and very, self-deprecating, funny.
Yeah. And it worked.
So we ran with it. And then over time, I really started to love the song more and more and more. And then, against the opinion of the rest in the band, I said, this has to be the second single, and we have to make a really silly and fun kind of video about it. And so we did. And, a lot of people were saying that, they love it as much as I do. And of course, some were like, oh, this sounds like L7 without a tampon throwing, some shit. But you can't hit everyone's taste all at the same time.
You can't. You really can't. I love the track Touch.
That one obviously had a whole fucking leaning towards, early 80s synth pop dance music, kind of, Yazoo and stuff like that.
But the melody and the vocals just went together so perfectly. It's a really, really lovely song, that is.
Again, another example of Lucia's extraordinary craftsmanship when it comes to songwriting. I mean, I'm just providing, skeletal things and pass them around to Lucia and both Andy's. And the stuff that they come up with sometimes is really amazing. And I have to say, Andy is not only a drummer. He always comes up with, suggestions about other stuff. Like, for instance, change that bass line around a bit more this way, that way. So we all have a lot of creative input into the skeletal things that I was talking about. And really, when I start a song, I just maybe have a little audio bit that I recorded somewhere, or some notes that I jotted down, or sort of a sketch of a rhythm idea. And then it doesn't take so much inspiration as it does take a certain discipline to really forge something out of something very small, and sort of surround it with things that kind of go with it, and grow it in a way to become something. And then once it's being passed around, more often than not, things get turned inside out, and it's too slow, or this is the wrong kind of harmony. So there's a lot of mulling stuff around over time, that in the end, I wouldn't even know where a song like Touch or Airhead even began with. I could look on my backup drives and trace it back, but it was probably something completely different in the beginning than what we hear now. And that's really interesting to me, because I am not so much a musician. I mean, I don't really know how to play an instrument like a virtuoso. I can play a little bit of guitar and a little bit of bass and a little bit of drums and stuff. But, that's my role in KMFDM. I'm surrounded by 3 really excellent musicians, and I feed them stuff, and they throw it back at me, and then it's my job to really make it sense, put it together and mix it and polish it and do the whole sort of production of it.
What an incredible procedure you've got together, and it works well. Obviously, you all obviously get on.
Oh yeah,
which is really good. I mean, that's essential that you all get on. And are you all willing to take the feedback from each other? What works and what doesn't?
Absolutely, yeah. It's there's never any reject kind of situation, where we say, oh no, this is not good. I mean, obviously there is sometimes, something is obviously not good, but that's usually my fault. So,
at least you're honest.
And then I make sure to bury it really quick and really deep. So,
wow, that's brilliant. I love that whole system you've got there. That really does work well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it works much better than, for instance, if we were all like hanging out in the studio, or in a rehearsal practice room or something, because we would probably not get much work done. We would, hang out and, I don't know, have fun hanging out. But this way, working in a modular fashion, really, sending stuff overnight from one end of the world to the other, it makes a lot of sense in terms of efficiency and productivity as well. I sometimes send something off at the end of my day, and then in the morning when I get in my studio, there's 16 guitar tracks, waiting for me to be to sort of line them all up with the track and make them make sense again.
So do you all live in different countries?
Yeah, actually, our drummer Andy, he's British, but he lives in Florida nowadays. Our guitarist Andy Blacksugar, he's from Brooklyn, and Lucia and I live in Germany currently.
Wow. But it's amazing how the internet has made all this possible, that you're not obviously the only band that I've spoken to that live in different countries, but just send off the stuff to each other. And
yeah, I've done that since removable hard drives became available, like in the mid-90s.
Wow.
The then current lineup was living in Canada, New York City, and New Orleans, and Seattle, and whatnot. So we just FedExed hard drives back and forth, and then over the phone talked about the arrangements and what needed to go on where and how and so forth. But obviously the internet and high-speed internet and everything, makes it so much easier. It's pretty much instantaneous. I mean, I can upload 20 gigabytes of material and it takes about half an hour or so.
Yeah, so fast now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It really is. I got to ask you, your album covers, etc., they've always followed that same style, which is pretty unique to you. Where did that idea come from with the kind of graphical idea?
I was introduced to an artist in London back in, probably 1987. A guy originally from Merseyside, Liverpool area, who was like an underground illustrator for a series of small sort of cartoon booklets called Brute. And his name is Aidan Hughes, and we've been friends ever since that day when he presented his idea for the UK release of our first KMFDM official album. And we stayed in touch. Actually, it was really funny. At one point, maybe in 1996 or so, I couldn't reach him under his UK phone number anymore. And
Hello?
And I had moved to Seattle the day before. And I said, "Where do you live?" And he said, "I see you." And I said, "What?" He said, "Look over here." And it's like not a half a block away from me, there's Aidan standing on his terrace, waving me.
Oh, brilliant.
We lost touch for like a year or so. And I moved into the same neighborhood that he had. You know? That was totally amazing. So, and he's a member of KMFDM, obviously, because he creates the visual brand. And you go into a used record store or whatever, you riffle through the bins, and boom, there's a KMFDM record. You don't even have to consciously look at it to realize, oh,
they stand out.
Yep. And I think that's really been it's been very helpful for KMFDM's sort of longevity in a way too, because people just go like, oh yeah, this is like, I used to buy records just because I liked the cover back in the day. I would just go to my local record store and then look at the stuff, and then I like this cover. I would ask the guy behind the counter, I'm like, "Hey, is this any good?" And he would say, "Yeah, oh totally, it's excellent," even though he probably had no idea. But I ended up finding a lot of good music just from liking the covers. And some people do tell me that happened with them as well, which is in our case.
I was going to say, I've done the same as well when I was younger. It was the covers. If I hadn't heard of the band, I'd say, oh, that cover looks really interesting.
Totally, yeah.
Buy the album, and more often than not, it was a good album, and you've discovered something new.
Over the years, I've collected a couple of like big coffee tables books with record covers, mostly from the late 70s throughout the 80s. And man, I found so many records in those coffee table books that I actually own just because I like the covers, and, immortalized now in the form of coffee table books. I don't even have the records anymore, but I look at them and I go like, oh, that was really great. I wish I could hear that again,
Yeah, and I must admit, I do love vinyl. I really do love vinyl still.
Me too. And actually, this whole, well, not so much judging records by the cover, but we ran into this phenomenon with Rextrax records in the early 90s, where, people would buy everything that Rextrax put out, because that sort of underwent a certain quality standard. So Rextrax bands, they got famous just because they were on the right record label at the right time. Much like, decades before that, like jazz artists, they were on Blue Note, and, jazz enthusiasts, they would buy just everything that Blue Note label put out. They would just go like, that's it. If they put it out, it must be good. It must sort of adhere to a certain quality standard.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think 4AD were another one. You'd buy the album because they were on 4AD. You knew they'd all be similar style and you'd like it. So it was kind of a no-brainer to buy their albums.
On a side note, the guy that I mentioned in passing, the guy that wanted to re-release our first German-only release in the UK and licensed to the US, he had written a postcard to me. And I was like, talked to him on the phone then. And I said, how did you even get a hold of my record when you're in Liverpool? And he was like, oh, I found it in a dumpster at Mute Records. I had been to London with the first pressings of our first album, going from door to door, like looking at all the record companies in the phone book. And I never got to speak to anyone. Oh, Daniel Miller is not in today, but I'll take your message, you know? So then they put my album into the trash and somebody found it there.
Oh,
that is so absolutely unlikely. I mean, so is the entire 40 years of KMFDM. There's so much like sheer coincidence, total flukes, a lot of good luck, and a lot of just being at the right place at the right time, you know?
wow. But I mean, you've become quite synonymous with industrial music, haven't you? Your name is out there as a
yeah. I guess we were lumped into the industrial camp just because we made our very first appearance with Ministry. And,
I was going to say, yeah, because of Ministry.
I mean, up to that point, you know, all of our albums had they contained like very strange kind of dubby and reggae type of numbers, and well, once we got a foot in the door in the US, obviously we started producing material that, you know, people wanted to hear. So this goes for like the era of I don't know, from 92 maybe to 97, 98, something like that. And that's really when I had it. I was like, I don't want to make this kind of music anymore. There's so much more to music. It doesn't have to be, you know, industrial metal or whatever you want to call it. I want to make the music that I like. And that's ultimately what caused KMFDM to go into a hiatus for 2 years. And I just turned around and made a record that was very electronic, with the name KMFDM backwards. So it was called NDFNK. And that was sort of, you know, in terms of creativity, that was really like breaking through the prison of sort of self-imposed industrial kind of music in that sense. And ever since, you know, we've composed and worked with much greater artistic freedom and leverage, really. So yeah, I guess a lot of people still know us as a sort of industrial band, but you know, that's not so much the case anymore. And I think evolution is really very important. I mean, you cannot ask people to make the same stuff over and over again. It gets really boring.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got to, I think, to stay making music and performing music, you have to be enjoying it. And if you're not enjoying the music that you're making, it's not going to be good.
Yeah. And it's just a damn job.
Yeah. And you've got to enjoy that. You've got to be able to put a performance on, especially live, I would have thought. You have to be putting heart and soul into it. And if you're not enjoying that music that you're playing, that's going to come across, whether some people...
Then all is lost. Absolutely. Then all is lost. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, then it's not good.
Yeah, exactly. But you've been going 40 years, so you're obviously enjoying it. Which is great. It really is great. What's it like being on tour with you guys?
It's gotten amazingly civilized, really, I have to say. We don't smoke on the bus anymore. There isn't all that much drinking. There's literally no consumption of drugs, really. And that's interesting, because in the US, you know, you can get marijuana everywhere nowadays. And it takes the fun out of getting high, you know. When you see people all day long that are just like smoking weed, you're just kind of like, what's the point, really? You know, they're really dull, because they're just completely, I don't know, dosed up with the edibles and smokables and shit like that. So yeah, but I digress. No, it's nice. We have a really good chemistry between our touring crew and us. We all travel on the same bus, really, and you know, it's everybody looks after themselves and tries to stay functional and healthy, and it's much easier to tour that way than it was back in the day of, you know, rock and roll.
Yeah,
when you had to go crazy, everybody had to go crazy all the time, and it really became quite unenjoyable.
So do you think that's mellowed because of, well, we're all getting older?
I think it's not so much the getting older; it's more like the getting wiser part. You know, you know, You have 20 shows in a row with only like a couple of drive days in between. And, to distribute your energy smartly just contributes to everyone feeling much better for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks or however long one is on the road. So it's a learning curve, but getting older surely has to do with that as well.
But you still enjoy doing the live.
I really do. It's I wouldn't enjoy making albums without going on the road.
No,
I think it's really important to, show all the facets of what it is that this particular band does. I do realize that there's a lot of people that just want to be musicians and they just want to make music and they don't have it in them, or they don't feel like they have it in them to be, rock stars and animals on stage. But we do have that element, and we enjoy it. We let the pig out, like we say. We let the cat out of the bag every night, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, after a good, hard, intense tour, it feels very nice to be back in the studio and kind of, start on a fresh, clean slate and record new stuff and, begin a new cycle of recordings that may or may not end up as KMFDM.
Well, that's good. That's good. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about, Sascha?
I guess you and I, we could talk probably all day long and grab a couple of beers and sit in the sun.
Yeah, I think we could do that. Yeah, definitely.
I think we touched on a lot of stuff, really. I mean, I can't think of anything to throw in, but yeah, I'm hoping to, get our feet back on the ground here in Europe at some point, and then come to Malta and play that Dark Malta, you said?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Dark Malta Festival. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Like I mentioned before we started recording this, I spent a summer on the neighboring island of Gozo, and it was fantastic. I was doing diving and snorkeling and things, and
that's wonderful, isn't it?
Very great place, and sort of within close reach to where I live. Actually, it's just takes like 2.5, 3 hours to fly there.
Yeah, exactly. And the snorkeling and things here is just
that was the thing that really got on me when I lived in Seattle. Seattle is so far away from the rest of the world, and I was just always dreaming when I lived there. I was just dreaming that I was not living there, that I was living somewhere in Europe, and I could just board a flight and go to any place around the Mediterranean within a matter of hours. But getting from Seattle to anywhere nice, it's like a shit long flight, and so that wasn't so thrilling.
No, but that's something I love about here is the sea is just literally 5 minutes away, and if you want to go snorkeling or whatever you want to do, you can just do it, and it's relatively safe. I mean,
and you're probably in Libya in less than an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want some real adventures.
That's it. If you want the high adrenaline stuff, yeah. That's for sure.
Well, Mike, I really enjoyed our little chat here, I have to say.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Well, let's stay in touch.
Yeah, definitely.